So here we have our health potion, and we have the name, the description, the image, the mesh types, the materials, and so on. Hey there, I'm your host Lissawi, and in today's video, we'll be creating the item data structure for our inventory. So that said, let's begin. Let's start by going into our content drawer, and over here, we want to go to our inventory system. Let's right click and create a new folder, and let's call this items. And inside here, we want to right click and create a new blueprint class. And this actor will be the parent class for all of our items in the game. So let's call it BP_item_base. And we can save it as that for the moment. Now let's go back and right click once again. We want to now create the items effects. So item effects, and the same like we did with the items. Let's go to blueprint class, select the actor, and this will act as the parent class for the item effects. So BP_item_effect_base. Let's save it at that. Next, then we want to create a folder for the item data in which we can have all the structure of how and what information our item has. So let's right click and go to new folder, call this item data, and let's open this up. In here then we want to go to blueprint and select a structure. Let's call it S_item_info. And in here we will design what information our item has. So this would be such as the name, description, the image, the mesh it has, the sound effects, item category, and the list goes on. So in here, let's start by giving it a name. Let's then do a description. And what else? Let's see. We want to know the image the item has. We then want to know its mesh type. We want to know the effect, the sound effects, so SFX, we'll call it. A few more. We want to know the item type. So is it perhaps a weapon? We want to know the item category. So is it once again, could be a weapon, could be a potion, a book, something like that. Let's do equipment category. So this equipment category then would go into, where does it go into the body? Is it a headgear, torso gear? Does it go in the legs? Things like this. So we'll call it equipment category. And then let's do two more. Let's have the item rarity. So how rare is our item? And then the slot quantity. So how many can go into this one stack? So for the last one, this will be a integer. For the first two, we can do a text. So the name and the description, like so. And for the rest, we'll have to do something. And for the image as well, we can do a texture 2D. This will work. Object reference, that's fine there. And yeah, let's save that. So back inside of our item data folder, let's right click, go to blueprint and create a new structure. Now this structure we can call S_item_mesh_info. Let's open this up. And in here then, I want to add the skeletal mesh, the static mesh, the materials it has, and the item class. So let's go ahead and do that. We can start with the item class. And if you remember, this will be the parent for all of our items. So we can simply do BP_item_base or whatever the name you gave it is. So that's the case for me, and class reference. Then for the skeletal mesh, let's do skeletal mesh. This will be of type skeletal mesh right there, object reference. We then want the static mesh. So the static mesh will act as the mesh for it in the world, and the skeletal mesh will act for it as when we have it equipped. So static mesh, and we search for static mesh. Do we have one? We do. Object reference. And lastly, we want the materials. Now, of course, if your items have just one material, you can leave it as a single. Now I'll make this into an array. And we want to look for a material interface. There we are. Material interface, object reference, and I'll change this into an array. Let's compile and save that. Now back inside of our s_item info, we can go ahead and add this to our mesh. So let's open this up, do s_item mesh info, and there we are. So let's save that. Next, let's right click again, go to blueprint class, select structure, and this time we'll call this s_item effect. And let's open this up. Now in here, we want two variables. We want to know the actual text. So item, let's do effect text. And let's do text, and then we'll have the actual effect. So item effect. And let's give it our BP_item effect base. So once again, that's the parent class for our effects. Compile and save. And let's exit this, and back inside our s_item info, if we go down to effects, we can then select s_item effect. Nice. Let's save this again. Let's go ahead and create another structure. So blueprint structure s_item sound effects, like so. Now in here, your variable type, you want to be a sound base. So let's get this, first of all, object reference. Now in here, you want to design the type of sounds you're going to have. Now in my case, I'll have a pickup, we'll have a drop, a move, and a use. So let's get started. So select that, we'll call it pick up. We'll have a drop, we'll have a move, and we'll have a use sound effect. So let's save that. Open up our s_item info, go to effects or sound effects, and do s_item sound effects, and save. So next on the list, we have item type. Let's actually change that to weapon type, like so. And inside of our content drawer, instead of making another structure, we'll go to blueprints and create a enumeration. And let's call this our e_weapon type. Let's open it up. And in here, we want tree. We want the non-class. So if it's a normal weapon, so we won't do anything with it. Then we'll have another one for melee, and we'll have another one for ranged. So two of our weapon types, melee and ranged. So once we've done that, let's go ahead and create another structure just before we apply it. So right click, go to blueprint, create a structure, and let's call it our s_weapon info. And let's open it up. So in here, we want, again, few variables. We'll do 4. And first variable, we want to know, is it a weapon? So is weapon. So this will come out as true or false. If it is, we want the weapon type. So this will be our e_weapon type we just made, enumeration. We then want to know, for example, the damage it's going to have. So this will be an integer. And perhaps if it's a piece of armor, we want to know the armor. So armor. Once again, a integer. Let's save that value then and exit, and back inside of our s_item info. So our structure will go down to weapon type and select s_weapon info. And there we are, save. Next on the list is the item category. So for this, we'll once again create a enumeration. So go to blueprint, enumeration, and let's call it e_item category. Now inside here, we want to know what category it's going to be. So this will be for the filters in our inventory. So let's create 5. And for our first one, we want to know, is it a weapon? So weapons. Then is it a piece of clothing or something? So we'll call it apparel. Next, let's have, for example, food. We'll have potions, and we'll have miscellaneous. So MISC. With that, let's save it. Hit X. And inside of our item category, we can do e_item category. Nice, and save. Next, then we have our equipment category. So fairly similar. We'll go to blueprints and do an enumeration e_equipment category. Let's open it up. Now in here, we want the category for all of our skeletal meshes in our player. So if you remember, we began with our first one, or none if we don't have one. Let's do that first. Good to have. Then we began with our head. We had head, we had a torso, we had hands, we had legs, and then we had two for our melee weapon. So melee and our ranged. So that's all I believe. Now do this exactly like we did in our player. So once again, just to confirm, person character, if we open this up, in our viewport, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the same 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and none is just there to assign something if we don't have one. And back in here, we'll add e_equipment category, and let's save. And lastly, let's create one more enumeration for our item rarity. So enumeration e_item rarity. And in here, we'll do, let's say 6, I think. We'll do none. So no rarity. We'll do a common. We'll do a uncommon. We'll have a rare. An epic. We'll have a legendary. Let's do one more. We'll have mystical. So there we go. And back inside of our s_item info, we can go ahead and do an e_item rarity. And there we are. If we save this, now this is our structure for our item. So we can go ahead, change this around, add a few more things if we need to. But for the moment, it's good. So we can save and exit. Next, we want to create a data table for our items. Now, there are two ways we could do that. So let's go to our content drawer. Now, the first way, if we right click, go to miscellaneous, find a data table. And from the drop down, we select s_item info because that's where all of our names, description, meshes are. We'll do dt_item data. Now, this way is okay, except it can get frustrating a little bit because you have to create a row and then fill it out for every single item. So it can be a little bit time consuming. Another way is doing the exact same thing, but in a different software, such as Excel. And it's, I think, a little bit easier to manage and works a little faster to fill out all of the information. So we can also do it that way, which I have done. And you want to save it as a CSV. So then you'd go ahead, you'd import it. You'd find it first of all, and you want to import it. And then from the row type, we'll do once again s_item info and hit apply. You'll get this little error. Don't worry about it. We'll hit OK. And we'll call it dt_item data. DT standing for data table. And let's open it up. So in here then we have all of the items I've added to the Excel sheet, and they have the name, the description, and I think that's as far as it goes. So we then want to fill all of this out. Now, for example, like the head, we don't want to add a skeletal mesh because it's just like a base that's sitting on top of us that it'll be replaced with like by glasses, or maybe you have a hat or something else. So head, if we were to fill it out, image itself, we'd add a non-image. Do we have one? I do not. So let me quickly import those. And we're back. So for the image of head, we'll do empty. And we'll have empty slot 01. And our other empties, such as these ones here, those are the icons that will go into the equipment slots. But for the inventory slots, we'll keep it as nothing's here because it's just our head. Now, to explain this a little bit further, I'll give you an example. If we go into our third-person character and open this up, we can see that our head itself doesn't have anything in here because it'll be replaced by glasses, hats, whatever. Our torso, on the other hand, does because we need to have a base model. For the head, we already do have a base model, and that's the leader. That's why we don't need anything. So for torso we do, for hands we also do, and for legs we also do. For weapon, melee, ranged, we don't. So this kind of gives us an idea of what we want to fill in. So head, we don't have to fill in the skeletal, the static meshes. We just don't. For our torso, on the other hand, we do. So let's do torso, not this type of torso. We have a different type of torso. Let's see. Actually, we don't, because I never took an image. So we'll just do empty, and we can do empty slot. But for the skeletal mesh, we want a torso, and there we are. So we again want to find the materials. Static mesh, don't worry about it, because you'll never really be dropping your torso in the game. It's just there for our players. So for the materials, a little bit hard to find. But if we go to our pack, our character pack, go to materials, I believe this one could be it. T for torso. We'll chance it and see what happens. So you want to go ahead and fill all of these out. So I'll do a few of them with you. So item rarity, you can leave as none because we have it equipped, or you could do common if you want. For the equipment category, we want this to be torso. And is it a weapon? No, it's an apparel. For the sound effects, we can also fill those in. Is it a weapon? No. Damage armor? No. Effects, the same, nothing in here. So for some of them, you kind of don't really have to fill a lot. Item class, none as well. For the red shirt though, we'd go through to the image. We'd find a red shirt. There we are. For the item class, we want a red shirt. We don't want the parent class. So what in this case you'd do, you'd find your item base. You want to right click, create a child blueprint class, and would call this our shirt. And for the moment, we can leave it like that. We'll customize it later. But now we can select our shirt. So this item is assigned to this actor. And that's what we want. For the skeletal mesh, we have a red shirt, I believe, as well. Do we? We might not. Do we have a shirt? We do, SK_shirt. So we do have one there. Again, for the materials, you'd find this in here. Materials, I think this time material instances. And we have the shirt colors. So we have a red shirt. It is a white shirt under skeletal mesh, but originally it's a red shirt. Now I'll show you how to change this based on the item data. So you could have multiple color shirts. But since it says red, we'll do a red shirt. And I believe it's this one here. So we'll stretch this out a little bit more. Come in here and do this. Boom. Save that. We then want to go ahead and maybe do some more items. Slot quantity, we'll do 1. Item rarity, let's do rare. Equipment category is torso. And apparel. Sound effects, we'll leave empty for the moment. Effects, nothing in here really as such. So that's another item. Then we have blue jacket. So once again, we'll do blue jacket. And again, those are items that or images I've imported from my folders. Item class, once again, we can go ahead, create another one. So can I select the base and then click here? I can. We can either create a child from the parent or duplicate the child. Now that's very important. You don't want to be duplicating the parent. So create a child class and we'll call this our item blue jacket. Save that and then we can do blue jacket. Skeletal mesh, once again, should have something in here. I think it's just called a jacket. No color assigned to it just yet, just in the item data itself. For the materials then we want to go to this again, materials, material instances, find a blue jacket, and I believe it's this one here. So drag this out, put this in there. Effects and effects, weapon type, nothing really. Item category, we have apparel, we have torso, we can make it, let's say, legendary, and 1. So just like that, slowly, one by one, we want to fill this out. So hands, we do the same. For our hands though, we don't really have anything there as such, except the base model. So in the skeletal mesh, we do hands, and that's our base model. For the image, we do none. Wait, I do have a none symbol actually. So I might use this for head as well. None. There we are. That's a lot better. So that would be none. Glasses would have its own thing. Back to hands then. So none. For the material, we want a material. For our hands, I'm just going to play the guessing game again. Let's do P. Right, this looks like legs. This looks like the head actually. So it could be this one there. And I can't. Now we can. And we want to do effects, nothing, sound effects, weapon type, item category, again, apparel. This will go on the hands then. Let's say none, slot quantity 1. Did we leave head as none? We did, just to stay consistent. And you want to do this for every single one. Again, for melee weapon 00, which is on our character, this doesn't have anything. It's just the, oops, I did not want to re-import that. Let me Control Z. There we are. So for the melee weapon, we don't have anything in here because it's just sitting there on top of us and it's going to get replaced with the actual weapon. So in this case, like the head, pretty much the same example, we'll do none. Item class, none, nothing has to be in here. It's a weapon. Category is going to be melee. Item rarity, none. Slot quantity, just 1. And yeah, so then if you were to do ranged, it would be exactly the same. But if you do have a weapon you want to show, so steel greatsword, we'd find our image of whatever the item may be. Again, item class, give it the base, and then go in here, create a child of the base. We'll do item steel sword or steel great sword rather. There we are. And then just change it accordingly. Skeletal mesh, we have one. So skeletal mesh sword, do we have one? It might not be called that actually. Steel greatsword, there we are. Then for the static mesh, again, we have one, steel greatsword. And if you remember, all you do is you open that skeletal mesh and you make a static mesh. So back in here, we have done that. Then materials, I can just add one here, steel greatsword. If I remember the name, that's it there. Then for effects, no effects, don't need sound effects. Again, fill them out with whatever we have there. Weapon type, it is a weapon. Weapon type, it's a melee type, and damage, let's say, does 40 damage per hit. And that's all. Item category, weapons. Equipment category, melee. Item rarity, epic. Slot quantity, 1. So that's an example of what we want to do. And you want to go ahead and fill the entire table with such information. So I've gone ahead and filled out all of the item information and I'll take you through it. So we have our item, our test item, our health potion, our head, white glasses, torso, red shirt, blue jacket and red shirt, our hands, legs, navy pants, melee weapon, steel greatsword, ranged weapon, and finally an bow. So that's all of it. Let's save that. So this will be it for this episode. In the next one, we'll be creating the actual items. So with that said, I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, leave a like, and as always, happy developing.